So welcome to our March webinar. This is called the Super Skill of Validation with our presenter Geraldine Osowska today. So my name is Belinda and I'll be your host today. I work and volunteer for NEA BPD Australia in our virtual head office, and I'm also one of our trained volunteer Family Connection program leaders. As you probably know, NEA BPD Australia is a not-for-profit organisation, and we deliver programs, webinars and events to support families, carers and people in a relationship with someone who has BPD, borderline personality disorder, and or emotional dysregulation, and or BPD traits, whether there is formal diagnosis for any of those or not. Our main offering is our Family Connections program, which is a free evidence-based 12-week program delivering psychoeducation, skills training and support for people who are caring for or in a relationship with someone with BPD. Today, we are so very grateful for a presentation from Geraldine. Over the last 20 years, she has been working as a psychotherapist, and she has delivered mental health awareness training to a wide range of professionals, advised on television shows on mental health specific storylines, and she also supervises and trains other psychotherapists. Thank you so much, Geraldine, for making time for us today, all the way over from the UK, where it's 8 o'clock in the morning. Welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here and presenting on this topic. It's one that I find really useful in my own life, and I know that my clients, when we talk about validation, they really seem to get why it's something not only that they need and that they like, but it's also something that helps them to kind of bond with other people, to repair any ruptures in relationships. It helps to forge new relationships. And when we learn to really validate other people, we then get to do it to ourselves. So we learn to validate ourselves, and we will all know that people with BPD traits have chronically low self-esteem. So it's really useful there. And you guys will also know that caring for someone with and loving someone with BPD can be, because you are always having to advocate, to try and understand. It can be really tiring. So it's a skill for you to help, hopefully, to not only validate your loved ones, but also validate yourself and the journey that you're on as well. So it's interesting because when I talk to clients about validation, they say, oh, yeah, I do that all the time. And they might be talking about sympathy or empathy. So they might be really good at doing that. But validation's slightly different. And I'll get on to some definitions. And also, one of the reasons I think that validation is really important when working with people with BPD, when loving people with BPD or those traits, is because we know people with BPD feel emotions so deeply and so viscerally that if there's any perceived invalidation or any actual invalidation, this can be really impacting, and it can take our loved ones or clients quite a while to recover from feelings of invalidation. So we've got this kind of real kind of acute sensitivity to anything that feels invalidating, and it can take a long time to recover. But the flip side of that, in my experience, is that clients actually respond really well to validation. It can feel really nice. And I've had clients say to me, when I was letting people know I was doing this presentation, I was asking, what does it feel like? And they said, it just feels really warm. That was one of the main pieces of feedback that I got: warm and safe. So when our loved ones feel validated, it feels warm and safe for them. So like I said, I've got some definitions of validation, but in my head, what validation is, and I'll give you some, like I said, I'll give you a definition, but it's allowing someone an emotional space. It's an understanding of where they are, and even maybe going that even a bit further, an understanding of what they've done, even if we don't agree with it. It's understanding where that came from and allowing them a space to feel understood and acknowledged, which without jumping into problem solving straight away. It can be a bridge to problem solving, but in that moment, we're saying, I get it. Given what I know about you, I get why you are feeling this way. And I even understand that because of your feelings, that's why you did what you did, or you said what you said. So I'm going to show you a definition of Marsha Linehan's kind of wording around validation. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to put a disclaimer out there. I love my clinical work, but sometimes tech, you've got to bear with me. So I'm going to just share my screen with you now, okay? And is that coming up?
Yep.
Great. So validation is when you communicate to the individual an actual understanding of their behavior. When you are paying attention to them, you are listening to them. You are reporting what you say is important to me. You look at how their behavior makes sense in terms of causes. And when we're talking about how their behavior makes sense in terms of causes, what we're talking about is most behavior is the response of an action, which is the response of a feeling. So our feelings are these kind of communication transporters in our body that tend to push us towards an action. But as we know, sometimes our feelings can get it wrong. Sometimes our feelings can tell us, right, I should be feeling really angry, when actually there might be another feeling underneath that might be sadness. But people with BPD, as you'll know, and people with BPD traits find their feelings intolerable. So they might go to another feeling that feels a bit more tolerable. So the way that I tend to think about it is that the behavior is caused by a feeling. And when Marsha Linehan talks about it's an actual understanding of the behavior, that's what she's getting at. We understand that this has been driven by a feeling. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen with you, and you guys can have access to these slides as well. And I'm going to make everything that I talk about today into a blog on my website as well. So feel free just to contact me for more information if you want, I don't know, just the word copy of this webinar. Okay, so hopefully you can see me. Is that right? Can you see me? Yeah, great. So as I said, we're talking about this because people who have BPD and BPD traits, they feel emotions like really, really acutely. And also because of the kind of misunderstanding that has been around, I think in the UK, certainly since I began working, there's been a real misunderstanding about the kind of treatment that people with BPD need, or even if treatment will ever be effective, which it is. So our clients, my clients, your loved ones, just by being bounced around mental health services, they'll have experienced so much invalidation. Like the clients I work with have heard things like, oh, I can't work with you. Oh, right, well, I think it could be BPD, so I'm going to have to discharge you. Our service can't hold that kind of risk. And as we know, for people with BPD who again feel abandonment and rejection really acutely, all of these things become part of their narratives. So validation is just so important to begin that healing process and to help our clients feel understood, and that their world has been understood as well. And once we can make sense of our clients' worlds and our loved ones' worlds, we can be beside them and help them, rather than being someone who's kind of going, well, you know, maybe this isn't for you, but maybe do this. So, as I said, my clients really, really enjoy learning about validation. It's something that when they realize that actually, if I'm having an interpersonal conflict with someone, I can validate, and it helps me feel like I've got some mastery over the situation. And hopefully for you all as loved ones of people with BPD, or traits of BPD, I get that sometimes when things can become fragile within the relationship with someone with BPD, it can feel quite scary at times. Like, what do I do? What do I say? How do I manage this? And this skill can help. Once you've got it, it can really help. Oops. Give you, sorry, something funny came up on my screen then. It can really help give you a sense of mastery and kind of positive control over the situation. So when we validate, it's almost like we're kind of, and I'm going to give you some guidelines how to validate, but it's almost like we're tuning in to what's happening, to what's going on with that person. And if we're able to name what's going on without trying to tell them they're wrong, they shouldn't be feeling it, but if it's kind of like, wow, I can see you're angry, whoosh, the person feels understood, so their emotions come down. You see that, so your own emotions come down, and suddenly that bridge for communication is a bit stronger. So one of the other things that I wanted to show you is just a clip. It's a kind of light-hearted clip, which is a bit quirky, about validation. So I'm going to get that up for you now. So I'll just share my screen and I'll try to get onto the right clip. 1 second. Just bear with me. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to share sound as well. Maximize the screen. Thank you for bearing with me. Right, let me just. Oh, it's not letting me play it for some reason. Let me just see if I can do this. Is that coming on?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for bearing with me, guys. So
It's just, there's all this pressure, you know? And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me. And I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless. And
Can you full
I
screen
don't know
it,
if it's going to stop. I mean,
Geraldine?
that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because
Maybe
I mean,
over
I'll
to the
bet if we
right.
got that out of there.
To the
Stop
full
trying to
screen.
fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just maybe the nail is causing.
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
See, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
You're
out.
not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just sometimes it's like there's this achy, I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
That sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Oh, come on. If you would just
Don't.
try to see things my way.
So unfortunately, the video didn't work very well. The audio
Oh,
worked
did it
fine.
not?
No.
Our company has a new strategic initiative to increase market penetration,
Let me turn this
maximize
off.
brand loyalty, and enhance intangible assets.
Let me. Oh, right. Could you not hear it?
We could hear it, but we couldn't see it.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Because it was, I'm sorry about that, everyone. It was on share screen, so you could hear it, but you couldn't see it. Okay. It was a really good video called It's Not About the Nail. And I don't know if any of you have seen it before, but it's a conversation between two people, and this person is just wanting to be understood, and she's got this obvious problem, but in that moment she doesn't need problem solving. She doesn't want anyone to kind of tell her what to do. She wants her feelings just to be got and just to be understood. So like I said, that will be a video that will be shared with you. And I'm hoping that my other videos work as well. So as we've talked about, validation is really is something that I think is going to be a really useful skill for you to bond and to kind of, help de-escalate situations that might arise with your loved ones. And like all things, so I'm selling it to you, and it's a skill that I really believe in, but it can be tricky. And our loved ones, my clients, can sometimes, because they're smart, kind of know what we're trying to do. So I just wanted to share this with you. So I'm going to share my screen again, and let's just see, is that coming up? Yeah, okay. So this happened, this client's given me permission to share this with me. So they'd had a really tough kind of period, and they said, Geraldine, do not try all that validation shit with me today. And inside I was like, I still managed to get a bit in there. You must be stressing to say this to me. I get it, what's happened. But our loved ones with BPD, clients, because they feel deep emotions, they can pick up on all kinds of things. And sometimes clients have what I call a bit of a emotional sunburn. If they're feeling stressed and we suddenly go in super, super empathic, super validated, they can be a bit like, back off. And sometimes it's just about rolling with resistance and trying a sprinkling of validation, seeing how that is, and then trying a sprinkling more. Okay, so let's think about, first of all, as well, what is not validation? So I did have a video that I'll put on the notes rather than waste time me trying to get it on, and it's a Brené Brown video, which is Brené Brown on empathy, and it's a really good video. I show it to my clients as well, and it's got some really good examples of sympathy and problem solving. Now, I know, because I've been there, that when we have someone that we love in front of us who is highly dysregulated, who is struggling, who has been perhaps in and out of services, to advocate for them, you have problem solved. We problem solve. We do that. We phone professionals, we phone therapists, we phone social services, so we can naturally go in to problem solving. So it makes sense that we do this. And one of the things that can actually block invalidation, I think, is that compassion fatigue, where it's like, God, I've just tried so much. I'm so tired. It feels so hard, like this this kind of roundabout that we're on of trying to get support, of emotional dysregulation. It's getting to me. So it's just to put that out there. Compassion fatigue is a thing. And if you notice that this is something that happens to you, it's super important, I'm sure you've all heard this, to take time out and to really look after yourself. So the other thing, I'll stop sharing my screen now. The other thing that I think blocks validation, and I see this in my clients a lot, is they hold on to this kind of perfectionist idea about what validation looks like, so that it should be that they should be only to be able to validate if they're this Zen-like figure who's just feeling so calm and so at peace with the world. And I always say to them, get rid of that idea. Whenever we're using any skills, it's like we're being a weightlifter. We're like going, right, I'm really trying. This is hard. I'm keeping my cool. Okay. So any perfectionistic ideas you have about doing any skills, including validation skills, feel free to let go of them. The other reason that validation skills can be blocked is if we are self-invalidating, because maybe we've been hijacked by anxiety. We feel scared. Oh, I'm no good at this. I'm not a good partner, not a good mom, not a good dad. I can't do this. If we really beginning to buy into our own negative self-talk, and this is why self-validation is really important as well. Also, when I've taught this skill, it's been really interesting, because clients have said to me, yeah, but isn't this just like soft, namby-pamby stuff? They've got a real positive belief about tough love, so my clients who have experienced invalidation themselves might be like, what, so I have to validate someone if they've given me a tough time? And it's like, yeah, tough love just sometimes doesn't work. We need to be able to build a bridge of connection, and that's what validation does. Also, the other thing that I find in my own life sometimes blocks validation with my own loved ones is forgetting, sounds very obvious, forgetting that they are completely different to me. They have a completely different landscape, set of beliefs, life experience. Okay, so as you can tell by my slides, I'm animal mad, love them. Horses, dogs, cats, love them. My daughter, not bothered at all. When she was younger, I'd say, right, should we go to the park? Maybe spot some dogs, not bothered. And I was like, what? I'd be thinking, what's wrong? Of course, she's not me. So our relatives, even though, again, it sounds very obvious, they're so different. They've got the same DNA, but so different to us. So sometimes we expect people to respond the same way as us. If we're very, very practical and we like problem solving, we can get the job done, it can be really challenging to kind of recognize, wow, my child isn't like that. They really need that kind of, that different approach. Okay, so when is a good time to validate? Okay, let me share my screen with you again. Okay, so like I said before, and I've alluded to, I always think if you can really feel that itch to problem solve, hold it, okay? And validate first. It's such a good way to build a bridge to problem solving. It helps create understanding, safety, connection. So if you want to problem solve, think about, right, I need to do this first to help my loved one feel understood and to feel heard. It really will pay off. Like I said before, to de-escalate a situation, it helps give you mastery. And also what you'll be doing when you validate, and I'll come on to this in the other slides, you'll be kind of tuning in to what your loved one's feeling, because they might not be able to, because of a lack of emotional regulation skills. Your loved one might not know what they're feeling, but if you can name that, boom, that's a lovely bit of emotional regulation for them. As I mentioned, just to bond and be present with someone you care for. If you're just kind of shooting the breeze and they're talking about their day, you know, just to be able to be there, to be present. You're not trying to change their emotional state. They might have had a really good day, and you can almost scaffold that by just saying, wow, what was that like? Yeah, I get why you were absolutely buzzing. Yeah, it's amazing when you get feedback that something went well. You're there with them. Like I said before, to repair a relationship rupture, it's really useful to validate. You know, I imagine that you're feeling like really rejected now. I get that. I see that. And, you know, given what you've been through, it makes sense to me. And when you're ready, I'd like us to talk. So that big sprinkling of validation before I asked, I'd really like us to talk. So again, when setting a boundary with someone that we care about and we love, it can be really useful, again, to pepper it with validation. I know this might be difficult. I see that this is stressful for you. I hear it's not easy for you when I ask you to do something that you might not want to do. And when we're feeling vulnerable or fragile ourselves, when we're struggling with our own stuff, how does it make sense, given the journey that you've been on, if you're feeling sad or angry or scared? The more we practice our validation skills on others, I call it the trickle-down effect, then you can begin to learn to validate yourself. And I don't know if any of you guys saw in my therapy room, which I'm in, I've got a mirror. So I tend to do mirror work with clients. So they learn to validate themselves as well as other people. Okay, so next, how can I validate? Okay, and again, you are all going to have access to these slides. So this is, I think, in lots of therapies, like there's so many things to remember. So I try to make this just as simple as possible with my clients. So first of all, just kind of listen, be present. And while we're listening, you know, we're reflecting, we're paraphrasing, we're checking that we've understood, we're reflecting the emotion. When we're doing this, when we're reflecting things back, we're adjusting our energy accordingly. So if they're really agitated, we're slow and we're steady. We're bringing it down. If our loved ones are really, really, you know, in maybe quite a depressed phase, we might be not hugely energetic, but up in the energy a notch. Okay. At this stage, we're just listening really carefully. Like I said, did I get you? Is that right? It sounds like what you've told me is you were actually really disappointed when you knocked that chair over. Is that right? You really wanted to go on that trip. And when they said you couldn't, you felt really disappointed and angry. Is that right? Right, yeah. And I know how important trips are. I get it. So the first bit in, it's like the tuning in. And the second bit, we're going to tune into the other person's facial expression. So what's happening that the other person is doing? What are they doing? And what is it that we're understanding from what they're doing that isn't being said? What isn't being articulated? So again, I'm going to use that example. Someone gets told, you know, that they're not allowed to go on a school trip, and they knock a chair over. Okay. And they're saying, I did it because I was so angry. That teacher's such a nightmare. I hate them. I'm so angry with them. I wanted to knock them out. And I'm saying, I can see you're really distressed. And I wonder if you were really disappointed. So what's not being said? Again, that'll help your loved one feel really understood and got. And believe me, if it's not what someone's feeling, they're going to say, no, it wasn't that actually. I felt really anxious because it meant I was going to have to be on my own for a day with my TA, and I don't like them. So I was anxious. But I'm sure you're going to kind of gain points for trying to understand. We also look to the past. What do we know about our loved one that kind of informs us that this makes sense? Right, okay, yeah, I get it. Given what you've told me about what school was like, and you spent so much time in isolation, yeah, I get why you would feel anxious about that. That really makes sense to me. Given the context of your history, it makes sense that you felt angry and that you felt anxious. So we're looking at what's going on for the person, and we're looking to their past as well. And the next bit, walk. So how would it feel to walk in the shoes of the person that we love? So again, we really imagine, what would it be like to look at the world through their view, perhaps to not have some of the skills, the emotional regulation skills that we might have. How might it feel to actually be scared of emotions? Because that's what a lot of people with BPD experience, this real fear of feeling. So when feeling comes up, it's like, right, I need to block it the best way I know how, even if that's with a more tolerable feeling. And we can also validate by using some phrases, you know, I see how much this is impacting you. If anyone felt stressed and disappointed, they would feel anxious too. I get that these emotions come up very quickly and very suddenly, which is true for our clients. So there are some more examples here, because it can be tough to think on our feet. I think it's really useful to have examples and to kind of think about, actually, when I'm in a tricky situation, what's that path that I've been kind of advised to go down? So I see how much this is impacting you. Given what you've told me and what it means to you, it makes sense. You feel distressed. and then reacted. Lots of people would have feelings too if they were cancelled on suddenly. You responded the only way you knew how to at the time. So a lot of people tend to worry about validation. They worry that it might mean that it's condoning the behavior, and that actually, what if I validate and I'm actually encouraging the behavior? So it's a really useful thing to know that we don't kind of validate behavior which is invalid, but what we might validate, and what we do validate, is the cause, which is usually a feeling, or usually, and that feeling might be there for a reason as well. So people might avoid, oh, I completely missed that interview. Why? Because I was anxious. Well, you still should have gone, but in the context of that person's life, they get hugely anxious because they were bullied by a teacher throughout school. So it begins to make sense. So I know that one of the obstacles to this skill can be, oh, what if it just creates more behavior that I don't know? And one of the things I say is, think of it as a bridge to be able to ask your loved one maybe to change the behavior, or a bridge to create a bond, which means that you're more likely to be able to put a boundary down that your loved one will adhere to. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. And I had a really nice, is that stopped sharing, everyone? I had a really nice video to share with you all, which is from the film Inside Out. I'll send Belinda the clips.
I might
Inside
be able to share it if you like. I could give it a go. Do you want to message me? Do you want to message me the link, and then I could possibly share it if you like.
Yeah, that would be great. Let me just get it up. Okay. So I'm just messaging it over now. Okay, so that's going over. Yeah, I wanted to put some videos in for you all, so it wasn't a kind of death by PowerPoint presentation. So I'm really hoping that this one works, because there are some really nice examples out there. But like I say, I'll send you the links for the other two as well.
Did you pop it in the chat, Geraldine?
Right. No, I didn't. I popped it in an email to you. Right. Let me just get it up. I'll pop all of them in, actually. That's a good way around it. I've shut it. If you want to open that one, let's have maybe from your email, and then I'll send the others. I'll send the others through. Oh, here we go. I've got them.
My computer is doing some very slow business. I think
That's all right. I've got it. I've put it in.
So, here it is.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can put this one on.
Yeah.
really having some technical challenges with this webinar.
Come through.
Yes, it has.
Yeah.
All right, let's see if I can screen share now. Do you want to play the whole thing?
Yeah, I think it's about 2 minutes long. Is that right?
Still has some strong power left. Close your breath, relax the body. No! I want to go. Riley can't be done with me.
Hey, it's gonna be okay. We can fix this. We just need to get back to headquarters. Which way to the train station?
I had a whole trip planned for us.
Hey, who's ticklish, huh? Here comes the tickle monster. Hey, Bing Bong, look at this. Oh, here's a fun game. You point to the train station and we all go there. Well, that's the train station.
I'm sorry they took your rocket. They took something that you loved. It's gone forever.
Sadness. Don't make him feel worse.
Sorry.
It's all I had left of Riley.
I bet you and Riley had great adventures.
Oh, they were wonderful. Once we flew back in time, we had breakfast twice that day.
Sadness.
It sounds amazing. I bet Riley liked it.
Oh, she did. We were best friends.
Yeah, it's sad.
Okay. Come on. The train station is this way.
How did you do that?
I don't know. He was sad, so I listened to what.
Hey, there's the train.
Oh, these facts and opinions look so similar.
Don't worry. It happens all the time.
That worked, yeah? Oops, oh no.
Yeah, did it work this end? So one of the reasons I hope that I hope that everybody heard that, and I love that clip for many reasons, and one of them is that a lot of my clients, when they come to see me, they might have done, they might have had quite a lot of therapy and they've found it useful, but because perhaps if I'm thinking about DBT, they might not have done a full program. So they're using a lot of distraction to help, which is like helping them kind of temporarily. And that's what Joy, who's the kind of happy little character, if you've not seen Inside Out, that's what she's trying to do as well as just kind of going, hey, cheer up, it'll be fine. She's trying to distract, meaning that the bongo, the elephant, he won't feel his emotions. And actually what we want our loved ones and what I want my clients to be able to do is to feel emotions and know that they're safe. And of course, we feel safe as humans when we are connected, when we don't feel alone in the world. So although distraction is a really great distress tolerance techniques, kind of short-term techniques, whereas validation, you're helping your loved one to feel, to do something safely. And I think sadness just does it so beautifully. So if you've not watched that film for a while, or if you've never watched it, it's one that I tend to always advise my clients of all ages to watch, because I just think it's got some brilliant examples in. So yeah, that's pretty much, because we had some of the videos, but I'm not going to be able to show them. We had the Brené Brown one as well. That's pretty much the end of my presentation. So thank you so much for bearing with me, especially with technology. And yeah, it's a skill that I think you've had a whistle-stop tour of. I always say to my clients about any skills practice, start light. Start light. You know, the first time you rode a bike, you weren't expected to do any kind of, you know, complex mountain biking or really fast, like racer road biking. So start light. So start by validating in really straightforward situations, and then build it up. And remember, there's no such thing as kind of delivering these skills in this Zen perfect way, not at all. Like it'll feel difficult and a bit anxiety provoking, and that's okay, because it's new and you'll be in a challenging situation. So if anybody wants any more information, like I say, I'll make the slides available, then please do feel free to contact me outside of the webinar.
Thank you so much, Geraldine. It's been really lovely listening to your voice today. You've got such a beautiful, soothing and calming voice. So we'll go into the Q&A section now. But just before we jump into the Q&A, I just wanted to ask that if anyone found value in today's presentation, we'd really appreciate your support to keep us running our webinars and programs for free. I'm just going to pop a link to our donations page in the chat. You may know that all of our programs and webinars are run by a dedicated team of volunteer leaders across Australia, and we currently receive no government funding, and we rely on the generosity of donations from the community in order for us to keep on operating and to deliver as many free programs and events as we can to families in need. Thank you to everyone who has already given us a donation, and for those who are yet to donate, we really appreciate if you'd be able to just share with us a little bit. All right, well, I'm going to open up the chat now so we can start accepting your live questions. But I think we'll start off with some of the pre-submitted questions that we had come through. And I know that Geraldine, you probably touched on a few of the themes that we've got that came through as well. I've highlighted a couple of questions that I thought we might start with, unless you've got any particular ones.
No, just go with your lead.
Okay, go with it. So somebody sent through a question: how do I manage validation under fire when I'm being attacked, blamed, or manipulated?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And this makes me think about how it's a bridge with other skills. So if we're under fire and, you know, we're under attack, then sometimes it is about de-escalating, which might be, I can see that you're really stressed, something's going on for you to talk to me like this. And I see that and I want to understand it. And then there might have to be an and, because if the person who's kind of, you know, written this is under stress and is under fire, they're not going to be able to, I guess, go the whole way with validation, maybe, because validation, that's another thing. It's done kind of from a genuine place. But if you're feeling really scared or really anxious or really dysregulated yourself because you're under fire, that's when it might be about, it's a bridge to saying, and I think we should come back to this when we're both calmer. And I can see that you're stressed, and I think we both need some time. So you can do the naming, the tuning in, you're listening, you're looking, you'll get what it's like to walk in this person's shoes. And in that moment, if you're really under fire and it's too much, it's okay to give yourself that validation of like, right, I need some time, I need some space just to walk away, and we can come back to this. I'm not abandoning you, I'm not rejecting you. I just want to be able to manage, you know, I just want to be there for you in the right way. And right now, I need some time.
Okay. How do we validate someone who seems to be continually making the same mistakes, and we want to approach them and support them with what's happening?
Yeah. So when someone's making the same mistakes, I guess it would be about kind of saying, if they're making the same mistakes and trying, it would be, well, I can see how hard you're trying and you're here again. What's this like for you? But really, it's about hearing what they're saying. It's about listening for the emotion. What's it like for you to be here again? I know you've tried this before, haven't you? If we think about sadness on the Inside Out clip when she leant against Bongo, and she just was really able to give that historical context. So it might be about that. It makes sense to me that you feel frustrated, or you might be saying the unarticulated. I'm wondering if you feel frustrated, because I know how hard you're trying. I see how hard this is upsetting you, and you're here. I'm glad you're talking to me and you're here again.
Yeah, wonderful. We've got another question come through. How can a person recover from being addicted to validation from their peers and partners?
I really like this question. It's really great. I would definitely be thinking about if that person was working with me from a skills point of view, doing the mirror work. So they learn how to validate themselves, how to really make a connection with their, you know, with themselves and their own self-worth, understanding, right? Yeah, it makes sense actually that I seek validation from others, that I'm addicted to it. Because when I was younger, you know, I felt invalidation so acutely, and I also felt validation really acutely. But I know that now this part of my kind of journey has to be by myself. I have to be able to do this myself. So again, it would be doing lots of work around kind of self-validation from a really compassionate framework, knowing that there is a reason why someone ends up addicted to validation. We're not born like that, but there will be a whole myriad of reasons. But yeah, it's about really learning that self-validation. And Brené Brown, who I mentioned before, has just got some lovely resources and videos on the importance of self-compassion and the importance of vulnerability.
Yeah, sorry, something popped up. So how, in a situation where somebody's lying and potentially you know that they're lying, how would you provide validation without compromising your own integrity?
Wow, that's a really good question. Yeah, that's a really good question. So just because if I've got my pen, just say that question to me again, just because I don't think I can. Yeah. So
I worded it slightly different. Let me read it out exactly as it came in. How can you constantly validate lies without compromising your integrity? And what I think they're asking is, when you know that somebody is lying, is there the potential for validation?
yeah, that's a really good question, because we wouldn't validate invalid behavior. So if we know someone is lying to us, then it wouldn't be something that we would validate. We might kind of, I'm just thinking, we might navigate around that and say, what's going on for you when you tell me that? To try and get behind what's happening. Or when you tell me that, I'm really wondering what you want me to know. I'm getting that you want me to know something, and you might have an inkling of what that is. So obviously I don't know very much about this situation at all, but if the lie was one which was, say, a grandiose lie, like someone bigging themselves up, it might be, it seems really important that I know how well you're doing. You want me to feel like you're doing really well. But like I say, it's quite a difficult one without knowing the full context of the situation. But short answer, we wouldn't validate that behavior if you knew someone was lying to you. We might try and get behind it. And again, we could use a bridge if we were going to empathically confront someone, which is another skill. Validation would be a bridge.
Fantastic. Great answer. And I think that leads into that we've had quite a few questions come through in a similar vein, which is, how do I provide validation when I don't agree with this person's behavior, and the difference between agreement with their choices and validating their feelings?
Yeah, and it should be like I should have had it on a huge kind of PowerPoint screen. So like when we validate, we're not condoning someone's behavior. But we're understanding that it has a causal element and usually a feeling, and that's the bit that we're validating. So what we would do if we don't like someone's behavior, I would think about how we use validation as a bridge to set a boundary. You know, I hear the anger in your voice. I see how upset you are. I get that these feelings and the way that you're feeling, even towards me right now, are huge. I really see that. I'm really sorry that you're feeling like that. And that's when we come to the boundary. And it isn't okay for this to be happening. I'm setting a boundary. I don't want to be treated like this. That's the boundary bit. And today, obviously, we're doing validation, but I just want to let you know how validation can be used to support a boundary. Now, if you felt safe and someone started to de-escalate, that might be enough. You might not need the boundary. But from what I'm hearing from that question, it's like, hang on, I don't want to be validating someone's behavior when actually the behavior is the thing that I'm trying to change, or the thing that they're trying to change. So it would be, I'm just thinking about some of the work that I do with parents when like a kid's told them to, you know, get lost, but using sweary words. It could be like, wow, that tells me that there's so much going on for you that I don't know. For you to talk to me in that way, for you to be so angry with me when I've only just asked you to shut the door, that really tells me there's a lot going on. Do you want to tell me more? So you're not saying, hey, it's okay, you told me to kind of do one in a rude way, but what you are saying is, I see you, you're just going right round that. And if we think about DBT is all around, it's all about not reinforcing behavior. So these questions are really valid, but validation, we're just getting behind it. So we're not kind of paying, and obviously there's going to be times when this might be more straightforward than others. If we can just get around the behavior using validation, we can, then that's a good thing to do. If you feel like for your own values, right, I can let the fact that they've just been really rude to me wash, if I can get some understanding. But obviously for some people it might be like, no, this is too much, and it might be that sense of, wow, for you to say this to me, there's a lot going on and I need to take some time for me right now.
Thank you.
Does that answer? Because please let me know, Belinda, if you think that
that's really wonderful. And I think that then leads into another question that we've got here. The question is how to de-escalate self-harm behaviour. But I think that the deeper question is here, how do we learn? And I acknowledge that this is a huge issue for many people, and learning the skills of validating in a self-harming situation are going to take longer than this short little session. But if we were to start thinking about validating if someone is self-harming, what would your tips be?
Yeah, so again, and I'm going to sound like a broken record, which is a DBT technique as well. It's a bridge to other skills. So if you know someone has self-harming behavior, again, it would be, I get that it's really difficult for you to tolerate your emotions. I see that because I see what it is that you're doing, and I want to help. And I wonder what it's like for you to hear me say that. I want to help. And it also might be kind of naming, like I said, what the other person is feeling. I wonder if when you self-harm, you're feeling numb, or you want to feel something, or the other way around. You feel too much and you want to numb. And then there's a bridge to another skill. And you know what? I've been learning this really great skill. It's called TIP. It's called Tip the Temperature. I don't know if you guys know that one, but we can put it in the show notes. That actually will make you feel really different. So validation first, but on that idea of tuning in. What are you seeing? What's the unarticulated? Given the past experiences, does this make sense? So how that might sound is, I see that this is really difficult for you. And I know that life has been so tough for you because of your mental health. It's been really hard to learn any different ways to cope. I know it's been hard. Then you've got the and then you've got, and there's this other skill. So I always talk to my clients who self-harm about tip the temperature, because it feels physiologically different when clients do this skill. And Belinda will be able to put a link in for that skill, won't we?
Yeah.
Does that answer?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just pop in here as well that we had a wonderful webinar last year from Professor Penelope Haskins, and she specializes in understanding self-harm behavior or non-suicidal self-injury. So I'd recommend to anyone to go onto our website or our YouTube channel and view that webinar, because beginning to understand a little bit more about self-harm and why people self-harm, and that it's a coping skill for many people, can also help us to then build our communication skills and our language when we're supporting someone who is using self-harm behavior. Yeah. I should say at this point that if anyone is feeling triggered or upset by what we're talking about, that I encourage you to reach out to support services, professional support services, emergency services if you're finding that you're going into a crisis. So I, yes, encourage you to reach out to those. We might have time for a few more questions. Might just jump into the chat. We've had a couple come through here. We've got a question here from Peter. Attending this type of webinar is always a challenge for us. Any suggestions for making it more acceptable? Would you like to explain that a little bit more, Peter? Because I'm not sure I understand that. I will move on to the next one, but if you can just explain a bit more about what it is that's the challenge, and if it's the learning the skill or if there's a tech issue. We might not be able to help you with the tech issue because, as you've seen, we're all experiencing the tech issues. We've got another question here. After an attack, how should you respond when the person angrily tells you that now is a good time to leave? What would be a good response?
Let me just get that question up. So after an attack, if the person, how should you respond when the person angrily tells you that now is a good time to leave? What is the best response? Again, I think this is where self-validation can come in as well, because in learning these skills and supporting a loved one, it's a two-way thing, and it's about recognizing your limits. And again, it's really dependent on the situation, and I know minimal. If you want to stay and try and repair, it's very tempting to let them storm out. If firstly, all you can do if someone else is attempting to storm out is your best. If you want them to stay, is to say, look, I see how stressed, how angry you are, and that you want to leave. I get that. Conflict's difficult. But at the same time, you might then want to, if they're prepared to stay, then you can ask them, you know, what is it you're feeling? Talk to me. I see on your face, and I hear in your words that you're distressed and it's making you want to walk out. But again, if it's something that you feel you can't tolerate, then it's really important to take care of yourself, to say, I feel like we're both perhaps stressed here and maybe we both need a bit of a timeout. So I can see questions coming in, but I'll let you answer them, Belinda.
Yeah, sure.
Let me know which ones.
So Peter has responded and explained a little bit more about what they were asking. And I think if I think you might be saying that either for yourself you're having an emotional response to attending this webinar, and if you are talking about yourself, I probably recommend to make sure that you've got some support around you. How would you interpret that, Geraldine?
Yeah, I think, I guess attending webinars on BPD can be really triggering and bring up lots. And I would definitely say, if that's what's happening for Peter, to reach out.
I mean, we talk about in our Family Connections program about emotional vulnerabilities and starting to assess our own vulnerabilities and where we're at. And sometimes learning or webinars, it might not be the right time for us because we've got a lot of going on in our own life. And it is important to reflect a little bit honestly about where we're at and whether we're ready for this, or maybe we could watch a little bit and then watch a bit more at another time. But definitely being supported, making sure you're supported and you've got some comfort around you. I think that we've got time for one more question, and this is a question that you did speak to it a little bit, and it's a question that came up a lot in our pre-submitted questions, this theme of how do we practice that validation when the other person is feeling patronized by our attempts to validate and support them, but they're seeing that they're being therapized in a way.
So when someone feels like they're being therapized, it can feel really disarming, because you're kind of really trying your best, and then suddenly it can feel like you've been found out, or that you're a fake. And maybe it's just about, when that happens, just about saying, yeah, I'm trying my best. I didn't realize it was so, it was so obvious. So just owning it, maybe just owning it, and just saying, yeah, it can sometimes struggle to find the right words. So I'm just trying things a bit differently. What does that feel like for you, without getting into it too much? It's that idea of a sprinkling. All right, I get that might feel a bit different. I'm just trying something new. So owning it, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And like any skill, we're always going to be a bit wonky at the start and a bit clumsy with things before we start exercising that muscle, and it comes a lot more naturally as time goes on. And
a bit like when I talk to my clients, I say, start light, maybe start little, see how a little bit lands. So if you can practice this skill on, and in very kind of day-to-day situations, if you're talking to a mate and they're telling you something and it's like, oh, I'll just practice that bit of validation, you're gaining a muscle memory of that skill. And then try a little bit on your loved one, because your loved one will know you super well. They've got the superpower of feeling things very, very, very deeply. So they're going to be able to tune into what you're feeling as well. So you could just try sprinkling. The other thing that I sometimes advise my clients to do is to let that. So obviously I work with people who've got diagnoses of BPD and BPD traits, and I say to them, why don't you let your partner or mom and dad know that you're going to try something new, so you're preparing them, so it doesn't come as a shock. And you could do the same. So if you're having like just a chill time with your loved one, it could be like, oh, look, I went to this webinar, they're talking about validation, I might try doing that. Does that feel okay? So you're doing that lovely preparation work, you've been really honest with them. So that might be something that you could try as well.